Hi guys, so I'm here today to talk about if statements and the uses for them and whether or not they're going to benefit you in your future career, which I guarantee they will. So here, some of the uses, which I'm going to talk more about later and you'll be able to see through some of the examples we do, is that you're able to manipulate data pretty quickly, and this function can be used to evaluate text, values, and even some errors that you return and whether or not you're getting the same error or different errors time after time. So the formula is if, and then it'll say a logical test. So this will be greater than, equal to, not equal to, less than, or equal to and greater than, equal to and less than. So if this is greater than this, then we want to say this. So if it's true, if your logical test comes back true, you can put in a function, whether it's a text or a true, or even have it do a calculation. But if your logical test comes back false, this will be your value if false. You want it to say something else. So this will be a lot easier explained when we go into passing and failing. So here you can see a grade book, and you can see that students have exam 1, 2, and 3, and we want to see that if their percentage at the end is greater than 60%, they pass. So a good way to do this is an if statement. So we're going to do equals if, open parentheses, 72% is greater than 60%, so that's your logical test, and then we go, comma, we want to say, in quotes, pass. So it returns a string value that says text of pass. But if it's not greater than 60%, which will be the value of false, we want to say, then they failed, in quotes again, and then close your parentheses. Great, student 1 passed because their 72% is greater than 60%. This is pretty easy to see right now, but when you have 200 students in a class, if you're someone that's a professor at a big lecturing school, then it's not going to be this easy to eyeball. So we're going to do a Control-Shift-N to bring us to the end of our data, and do a Control-D to bring this all the way down. Again, you can see that 3 students failed this class, but this would be a lot harder to note if the students were well over 18 students per class. So again, really great for manipulating a lot of data quickly. So here, we want to see whether or not Ron Swanson turned in his paperwork. Again, it's pretty easy to spot which ones are left blank right now because there is only 21 pieces of data, but it's pretty quick to do an if statement here to tell if there's like 200 employees to tell who's turned theirs in or not. So we're going to do an equals if, open quote, or open parentheses, C2 equals, and then quote, quote. That means if C2 is blank, we want it to say, turn, which make sure to put that in quotes, turn this in quote, but if it is not blank, what we want to return is blank, so we can read this easier. And then you close it. So blank again is represented by 2 quotations in a row. So if C2 is blank, say turn this in, but if it's not blank, don't say anything. So as you can see, Ron turned his in. It was left blank. So we're going to do a Control-Shift-N to bring us to the end of our data again, and a Control-D to pass this down. Now you can see here that Tom hasn't turned his in, Andy hasn't turned his in, Jean Ralphio and Lil Sebastian didn't turn theirs in. These are all what you'd expect because, as you know, it's just the way the people are. But if you had 200 employees or you were working for the government and it was the whole status of people, this is going to be a really efficient way to do this because then you're able to sort by who hasn't turned it in and talk to them. Lastly, I want to show you just how complex if statements can get. So as you can see at the top of the tab, I have nested if statements, which is really a neat function where you can put an if statement within an if statement within an if statement, and here you can see just how long this if statement is. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm just going to move this here so we have it. Okay, now let's go through this. We're going to delete the information here and follow along the best you can because this can get pretty complex pretty fast, and I'm going to go through it so we have enough time left at the end for people to ask questions. So equals if, open parentheses. So we want to start from the the highest number down. So if 4,500 is greater than 15,000, lock it down. Then we want to take the 4,500, which is the commission or the sale amount, times they would get 20% commission if their sales above 15,000. So here we're just going to do a test and we're locking things down so we can drag it down like we have the past two examples. So if C2 is greater than 15,000, then we want to take that amount times 20%. But if it's not, we're going to do another if statement. So if it's not, we want to do if and then do C2. So if it's not greater than 15,000, we're going to move to this. So then it's going to be if C2 is greater than 12,500, lock it down. Then we want it to return 4,500 times 17.5%, lock that down. But if not, the value if false is it's going to be another if statement. So if 4,500 is greater than 10,000, lock it down. Then we want to take the 4,500, which is C2, times 15%, lock it down. But if it's not greater than 10,000, we want to do another if statement. So if this is greater than 7,500, lock it down. Then we want to take the commission amount times, or the sale amount times the commission. Lock that down. But if it's not greater than 7,500, we want to do another if statement and say if 4,500 is greater than 5,000, then lock that down. Then we want to take the 4,500, which is C2, times the percentage, lock that down. But if it's not greater than 5,000, we want it to return a 0. And make sure to get all of the brackets in. I think there's 5 at the end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here you can see that 45,000 isn't on our chart. So, or 4,500 is not on our chart. So they return a 0. So we're going to drag this down by doing a Control-Shift-End. Oops, Control-Shift-End. Okay, well, we're just going to go to the end of our data here and Control-D. And here you can see it returns the values you have. So this was a way that we would be able to see the commission amount, multiply it, do some ifs on the people. So they're going to have more than one sale in a lot of documents, especially at the end of the year if you're doing all of the sales. So this is an easy way to go about all of the sales and drop that down. So some common errors that are done is a typing mistake. As you can see in this last one, we did a ton of typing. If we would have made a single mistake in there, it would have been a lot of work to try and figure out where this mistake came from. Luckily we didn't, so we got pretty good there at dragging it down. But if you make a typing mistake, then you have to go through and try and fix that, which can be a lot. And then another mistake people often make is doing the lowest to the highest. So again, in this commission, if you're doing a nested if statement, if you start with 5,000, almost all of these numbers are greater than 5,000. So it's just going to return you with a 10% sales commission. So you had to start from the largest number so it would go down in value and you were able to multiply by all of those percentages, versus if you were doing it the other way, it would just give every single person except for the one who is Alfred who sold 4,500. It would give all of them only 10% commission instead of the 20% they earned. Lastly, VLOOKUPs. This isn't really an error, but it is a downside. VLOOKUPs can be faster, so really make sure you know in which situation to use a VLOOKUP versus in which situation to use an if statement. And that's all I have to show you today, so thank you.